Okay, so when we want to evaluate our items without the unit circle, right? Really, that means that you're going to have to make the table yourself. Okay, so let's review once again. Making our table. Making our table. Boom, right? Draw yourself some vertical lines. Draw some horizontal lines. Right? We know we have sine of theta, and we know we have cosine of theta. These are the two most important ones. Right? 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. Right? 0 radians, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 2. Alright, sine at 0 is 0, and it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Okay, what is the pair with 0? The pair with 0 is 1. What's the pair with 1/2? The pair with 1/2 is root 3 over 2. The pair with root 2 over 2, that stays the same. The pair with root 3 over 2, that is 1/2, and the pair with 1, that's 0. This is the part that really matters. Then we can evaluate everything simply by knowing the reference angle and the quadrant. 5 pi over 6, second quadrant, reference angle, pi over 6. Okay, so the sine of 5 pi over 6 is the same as the sine of pi over 6, pi over 6, sine 1/2. Sine of 4 pi over 3. 4 pi over 3 comes all the way around into the third quadrant. Reference angle, pi over 3. Sine, pi over 3. Right over here, third quadrant. We know that that's going to be the same as the negative sine of pi over 3 because it is in the third quadrant. So negative root 3 over 2. Right? Cosine 5 pi over 3. 5 pi over 3 would be all the way into the fourth quadrant. Right? It's not quite 6 pi over 3. It's pi over 3 short. Right? Cosine of 5 pi over 3. Reference angle. The same as the cosine of pi over 3. Positive cosine in the fourth quadrant. Pi over 3. Cosine 1/2. So equals 1/2. 240 degrees. 240 degrees, in which quadrant is it? Well, it's more than 180, but less than 270. So, over here in the third quadrant. What's the reference angle? 60 degrees. What takes me back to the x-axis, positive and acute. So, I know that this will be the same as the negative cosine of 60 degrees. Reference angle, third quadrant. Reference angle, negative, third quadrant. Okay. Then, let's look at this. 60 degrees. Here it is. Cosine. There it is. So, my answer is negative 1/2. Right? And then, good form, of course. Box your answers so it's easy to distinguish. And then, we're left at the tangent. Okay, tangent of 3 pi over 2. Well, where's 3 pi over 2? 3 pi over 2 is 270 degrees. It's on an axis, right? So, I know that this is sine over cosine, right? The sine ratio is -1. The cosine ratio is 0, so it does not exist. All right, because we're just going by the x and the y values. Right, so that's just y over x, -1 over 0. And then the tangent of 315 degrees. 315 degrees, boom, into that fourth quadrant. Reference angle, 45 degrees. Remember, you can also use this little setup. All spiders taste crunchy, whatever you have as your piece, right? And we know that in this quadrant, right, the tangent is negative. We know that the tangent is negative, right? So we can come over here, we can sit over here, we can say, okay, 45 degrees, here I am. What's the tangent ratio? This divided by this, which is 1. But in that quadrant, negative 1. Okay. The quiz that you end up taking on the unit circle will cover this information. You need to be able to do this, get this table, you'll have an easier time.